Chapter 35. It was 12:30 when Siv left her room. Her head hurt because she had not slept since yesterday. The woman at the reception said hi, but she just ignored it and marched out the doors. It was some of the hottest weeks of that year, and London lined up several tropical nights in a row. Just when the meteorologists said that it would finally get colder, Siv had bought a pair of sandals and started to wear fewer clothes. Siv walked the same way that she always used to walk when she walked to the library, up the A400. And then when she came to the skyscraper at Warren Street, she took off to the right and followed the A501. That way she could not get lost. Although she had been in London for nearly 9 months, she didn't know the city that well and had no interest in changing that. The library was closed, of course, but she just opened the door with her keycard. One of many small advantages you could buy if you had enough money. She felt a little sorry for all those people who did not have access to the library 24/7. She knew it was a great privilege. As a joke, she had asked the head of the library how much it would cost to rent the entire library, and even though the head of the library hadn't appreciated Siv's sense of humor, it felt like they had been on to something.
"You know what, Siv?"
the head of the library had said.
"I think it's better if you come here at night instead. That way you won't there won't be anyone else bothering you."
"Yes,"
Siv had said, surprisingly excited.
"It sounds like a good idea."
She walked up to her table and removed the sign that said it was reserved, and then she began to work. She went down in the large archives, ate a late midnight calzone, and accidentally spilled tomato sauce in a 500-year-old book. Whoops. Tried to wipe it off, but she left a huge stain in the margin. Well, it was a boring book anyway. No one would ever come all the way down here, into the underworld, open it and say, "Wait a minute, somebody has spilled tomato sauce in the margin." She put back the book, took the elevator up to the entrance level. The past few weeks, she had had this nagging feeling. It did not feel like she was alive. I mean, she was alive, but all days were the same. She woke up, went to the library, ate a calzone, and walked back the exact same way to the hotel as she came. She had been eating the exact same hotel breakfast for several months now, while others got tired after just a few days. She loved what she did, so it was not that. She felt extremely blessed that she was able to work with the things that she loved every day. It was a rare luxury, and she realized her ability too. She wasn't autistic, but the fact that she was able to repeat so many things over and over again was a necessary condition if she was to succeed in creating a golem heart. Other people would have given up, but she just kept working with the things she loved the most. And yet it felt as if she threw away her life, like she was not alive. Someone had actually said that to her once, that she was the least alive person that person had ever met. Can you imagine any worse insult? And yet that person had been right, sort of. Of course, she realized that all she had to do was to vary herself a little more, do different things so that she didn't feel so wearisome. And yet, she could not really. It felt like she didn't have the energy. Like she herself locked herself into this cell where all days looked the same. The most annoying part was that she knew that she actually liked to do new things, that she felt very proud of herself afterwards, and yet she couldn't bring herself to do it very often. Another thing that nagged her, she had absolutely no idea if she would be able to create a golem heart. She had the theoretical basis, but not the practical experience. And if it did not work, all this work would have been a waste of time. She knew you could not think like that. But still, if she had known from the start that it would not work, she would never have spent so much time with this. And there were no guarantees it would work. She returned to her table, sat down, worked for another hour, then got up again. She could not do this anymore. She would go crazy if she had to sit any longer at this table. She had to do something different, something she normally would not do. She had to challenge herself.
"I know what I will do,"
Siv thought to herself.
"I'll go for a walk in the library section for limnology."
This was very exciting. She had never read any book about limnology before. She pulled out a thick book about Lake Titicaca, sat down on a chair, opened the first page, very exciting, and realized that someone had squeezed in a piece of chewing gum between the first and second page. It must have been recently, too, because it was still moist with saliva and very sticky. Disgusted, she put down the book about Titicaca and rested her chin in her hand. Through the large window, the stars appeared. London was out there. It had bars and happiness and sadness. Too much madness for her taste. A taxi drove by. The headlights lit up the bookshelves. Then it became dark again. 5 minutes later, she marched out from the library. She would walk on a large scale. Afterwards, she would feel very proud of herself, and then she could return to her books. The question was just which direction she would go. She could, of course, march the usual route that she used to walk, but she had walked that one so many times that she felt like a prisoner in an exercise yard. 1 hour of exercise each day, then back to the cell. Okay. She lived in the south, came from the west, so she could walk north or to the east where she had not been before. North or east. North or east. North or east. She marched north. She felt homesick somehow. She had received so much inspiration here that she could use her work with the heart, like the knights in shining armor. She had this idea that she would use nitroglycerin, which was highly unstable and explosive, to widen the arteries, and then she would need some kind of protection. She would make her own armor, but not out of metal, of course, at least not the gloves, since nitroglycerin reacted with metal. She reminded herself that she had to call Timmy. Last time they talked, she had told him that she was in Ireland. She always had to say that she was in a new place, so he would not try to call her. The first time he had called her, it had been in the middle of the night. She had been completely flabbergasted. Why would he call her? She had only mentioned in the postcard which hotel she stayed at. Did not ask how he managed to find the phone number, but they connected him in the reception, and then the phone rang in her room.
Hello?
Hello? Who is this?
Timmy?
Timmy?
And then Siv had spent about half an hour trying to explain what time difference was.
You see, the Earth is extremely large and round, so the sun can't shine at all places at the same time. But because the Earth rotates, all places on Earth have day and night. So when the sun is shining at home, it is night here in London. Understand?
No.
When he finally understood what she was trying to explain, he said,
But how am I supposed to call you then? When it is day in London, I lie and sleep.
And so it was decided that Siv would call Timmy 3 times a month, but not more than 2 times per week. It was like a negotiation.
8 times,
Timmy said.
and you can call me as often as you want. You do not have to limit yourself to once a week.
Twice per month. Not more than once per week. That is my final offer. And by the way,
Siv said,
you can't just start with 28 times. That's not fair.
7 times and you tell me where you've hidden the key to the large cupboard in the hallway.
5 times in 2 months.
6 times, the cupboard key, and I will water your houseplants.
Wait, what? You're already supposed to water my houseplants.
Thus began a long series of phone calls. Siv used to call him 30 minutes before he had to go to school. That way she could make sure that they could not talk for too long. Timmy had never been later to school than he was that term, and Siv always had to make sure she had stories from all the new countries that she said she traveled to, so that he would think that she was hard to reach. This one time she told him that she was in the jungle of Congo, Kinshasa. She put on music with jungle sounds in the background, and then called,
Hi, Timmy. It is me. Sorry that I have not called in a while. I'm in the middle of the jungle, and it is very difficult to find a phone.
You're really in the jungle?
Yes,
Siv said, and held up the phone so Timmy could hear the monkeys chattering.
Can you hear that?
That's so cool.
Then suddenly a lion roared in the background of the jungle sounds.
What was that?
Timmy said, alarmed.
What is what?
It sounded like a lion in the background.
No,
Siv said, and shook her head.
there's no lion here.
Then the lion roared again.
Siv, there's definitely a lion somewhere nearby.
She could hear how he panicked.
Oh, you mean that lion. Yes, my guide here has just captured a lion that we will eat for dinner.
She had to be a bit careful. She noticed that he actually read up on the countries that she visited. One time, he even got an F in school because he wrote an essay on something she'd told him. She had just been babbling on to fill time, but the teacher had ripped the essay to smithereens, calling it the most made-up, fact-vulgar nonsense she had ever seen. It went something like this. Russia is the greatest country in the world. It's a constitutional democracy. There is no corruption. The country has, for several generations, exported its wise and thorough ideas to the rest of the world. Its president would never invade another country and treats its citizens with the respect and dignity that they deserve. While Siv walked around and thought about that, she entered a park. She had passed a bar called The World's End, and some guy had tried to pull her inside. "Hey, where are you going?" The guy stopped her, blowing smoke in her face.
I'm just going for a walk.
"Come and have a drink with us." And when he grabbed her hand and tried to pull her inside, Siv got really scared, so she kicked him in the crotch and ran away. While the guy's friends were laughing, she ran across the river and hid behind a tree until she realized that no one was following her. She was thinking about going back to the hotel, but she couldn't walk back the same way, so she decided to walk in a big circle, wandered around that area until she crossed another river, and at some point she had no idea where she was. She stood at the crossroad and tried to figure out what to do. The sky was cloudy, dripping, and the trees, they were British. In that moment, a man appeared in the dark. He looked at Siv, and Siv looked at him, a little bit bored.
Do not come near me. I do not want your alcohol. I do not want your cigarettes.
She went in a different direction. Behind her back, she could hear how he followed her. "A woman should not walk around at night all alone," he was saying behind her.
She should be lonely. Company is the problem. All a woman wants is to be lonely, especially in the park.
The black trees were swaying. "Are you lost? I can help. I know this park, all paths and where it is safe to walk at night."
Are we there now?
"No, this is not a safe place. Just last week a man was robbed exactly where you stand, and just over there another man was robbed. We have to leave this place. The robber might be back any second. He always comes this way to see if anyone is astray. He has a trick that he always uses. He pretends to help, while in fact he leads his victims further into the park, so it is a good thing that you met me first. I can get you out of here."
Can you take me to the Royal Horse Guards?
"You stay at the Royal Horse Guards?
Yes.
Then you must be very rich."
I guess.
The stranger hurried after her when she started walking. "Is it your first time in London? I can hear that you aren't from around here. Your English is very strange."
Thank you,
Siv said sarcastically.
I've been practicing before this trip, so it is kind of you to mention it. It means a lot.
The man looked at her, a little bit confused. "Right, so, have you had time to see Big Ben? I can show you Hyde Park if you like parks."
I thought this was Hyde Park.
"No, this is not Hyde Park."
I see, what a disappointment.
They were silent for a moment. All that was heard was the crackling of the gravel under their shoes. A bird flew right above their heads.
Are you going to rob me soon?
"What?"
I've been wondering when you are going to rob me. Will you give me an answer?
"I ain't gonna rob you," the stranger said, like he didn't understand why she would think that.
Why not?
"What do you mean, why not?"
Before, you were clearly going to rob me, and now you have changed your mind. Why? You even know that I am rich. Ooh, now I see. You are going to follow me to the Royal Horse Guards, and before we say goodbye, you'll offer yourself to show me the city tomorrow. With any luck, I will say yes, and then you hope that I will take you up to my room so you can steal all my stuff. But I will tell you something. That's not going to work. Not this time. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. No, it is better if you do it right here. It saves us a whole lot of time. Trust me, you don't want to show me Big Ben. If I'm really going to see Big Ben, I also want to see old blueprints and things like that. No, I will save you the trouble. You will just stand there, roll your eyes, and look at the time. Wait, I have,
Siv said and picked up her purse.
It's only £2,000.
She pressed it down in his hands. "You don't have to give this to me," the stranger mumbled, looking at all the money.
Do I have a choice? Take it. It is probably more than you make in an entire month. Now please stop following me. I promise if you follow me to the hotel, you are not going to make it. I am just going to call for security and they will arrest you. Okay, which way will you go? I suppose it is only fair to ask. It wouldn't be nice to walk off and just expect you to walk in the opposite direction. So, which direction will you go? Which way is home?
The stranger pointed in the direction that Siv would go.
No problem. Then I will just go back the other way,
Siv said, and marched back the same way they came. But it only took a few seconds before the stranger came up behind her. He grabbed hold of her and dragged her into the bushes. And then they stood there. Her heart was racing and almost burst through the chest, but he did not do anything. He just held his arms around her, holding his one hand over her mouth, and peered out into the darkness. When she tried to free herself, he held her fast. He could break her so easily. "Shh," he whispered, and pointed up the gravel path. At first, she didn't see anything. Then she noticed how a shadow came walking along the road.
"That is him. That's the robber,"
the stranger whispered in her ear. They stood perfectly still as the person came closer. After a moment, Siv could see that it was a young guy. He walked with his hands in his pockets and peered out into the darkness. You could hear the gravel crunch under his feet as he walked past their hideout. They remained standing there, completely still until the guy had disappeared. Only then the stranger released Siv. She walked out on the gravel and looked after the guy. The stranger came out after her.
You idiot!
She smacked him as hard as she could over his arm.
I seriously thought that you would kill me.
"Can you scream louder so that the robber can hear us?"
He pointed into the dark.
Why did you drag me into the bushes like that?
"I don't know,"
the stranger said.
"I couldn't let you go by yourself, because then you would have walked straight into the robber. And then, of course, I could have walked with you. You would never rob somebody that was not alone. But you would never have let me walk with you. And then I panicked and dragged you into the bushes. I'm sorry. I never meant to scare you."
What are you? Some kind of cop? Or do you just walk around here every night and warn people about the robber?
"No, I just happened to pass by. They've been writing about it all summer. That's how I know about it."
You just happened to pass by?
"Yes."
Then you can give me back my £2,000? Those were meant for the robber. Give it back.
The stranger took out the money from his inner pocket and then reluctantly gave it back.
Thank you.
Siv said and counted to make sure that everything was still there.
100, 150, 200, 250.
The stranger looked up at the sky.
"Looks like it is going to rain."
What? Now I lost count. 200, 220, 260.
"It looks like it's going to rain."
Siv looked up at the sky. It actually did look like it was going to rain.
495, 515, 520, 540.
"Why do you even walk around with that much money?"
Quiet, don't disturb me. 710, 730, 740, 745, 750, 760. If you interrupt me again, I'm going to take out my anger on you. 800, 805, 807, 809.
So the guy stood there and watched as Siv counted all her money. She froze when she counted the last bill. Then she raised her head and looked up at him like she was going to murder him.
There are £20 missing. Give it to me.
"I don't have it."
Do you think that I am stupid? Give it to me.
She began to rummage through his pockets. He pulled back.
"Are you calling me a thief?"
Yes.
"You're unbelievable. You would rather call me a thief than think for a second that you made a mistake counting £2,000. Who even walks around with £2,000? And I do not understand. Back then, when you thought that I wanted to rob you, you did not have any problem giving me the money. But when you think that I stole £20, what a crime. You suddenly act like a crazy bitch."
Well, that was when I thought that you were the robber, and not an honest man. Hey!
She yelled.
Robber! I got your £2,000 right here, and this man tried to steal £20 from you.
"I did not take it."
Siv mumbled angrily when she started counting the money again. Of course, she could have made a mistake, but she would never say that.
120, 130.
In that moment, the rain began. They were running, hiding under a big tree somewhere in the dark. The rain was pouring down. The stranger was sitting on the ground playing with his hand. Siv was standing, staring out into the darkness. She held her arms to her body to keep warm. Everything was running down the drain. It started with the leaves. The water began to move them. But as the rain intensified later that night, it started to move bigger things. Cardboard boxes were floating around in the Thames. Plastic bags drifted as far as the North Sea, before they sank to the bottom. Siv did not like rain. The stranger was sitting on the ground, playing with his hand. Siv stared into the darkness. No one said a word while the rain thundered in the trees. Suddenly, the stranger forgot his game. He came over to her and didn't offer her his jacket, even though she was shaking.
Tell me a tiny secret.
Huh?
Tell me a tiny secret.
She was looking at him.
A secret?
Yes.
What kind of secret?
I don't know, something about yourself. Doesn't have to be something special, just,
Tiny secret.
That is the idea.
A tiny secret.
She held her arms to her body, looking in the distance.
But I hardly know you.
That is why I only want a tiny secret. If we knew each other, I would want to know a real secret.
I guess I'm happy that we don't know each other then.
Like your name. That's a tiny secret.
No, it's not.
But then she decided not to be unruly.
Siv.
Siv.
Seriously?
Siv said, quivering.
Can I buy your jacket? I can pay £2,000 for it.
But this is my favourite jacket.
Can I borrow it for £2,000?
£1,980 to be precise.
Fuck you.
They switched the money again. The stranger got the money and Siv got the jacket.
So if you didn't come here to see the attractions, then what are you doing here?
I came here to find a king or a nobleman.
Why are you looking for a king or a nobleman?
That's none of your business.
The stranger thought for a while. Then he said,
Maybe I can help you.
You can?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I happen to be a nobleman of a sort. Not the old-fashioned ones, and I am not particularly proud of it, but before the military overthrew the empire, my parents were part of the royal family. I mean, only distantly, of course, but it runs through the bloodline. Here, I can show you,
the stranger said, picking up his phone.
Here, this is Haile Selassie, the last emperor of Ethiopia. He was my cousin's grandfather, something like that. Maybe you know him. He was considered to be somewhat of a god to the Rastafarians.
Siv took the telephone. She was not sure what to do with it. She looked at the picture of Haile Selassie. Then she looked at him. He had ragged jeans and tousled hair and a very childish smile.
But you don't look like a nobleman.